I still remember the first time I saw him. It was late, around midnight, and I was getting ready for bed. I live alone in a quiet neighborhood, so I usually feel pretty safe. That night, I was brushing my teeth when I happened to glance out the bathroom window. That's when I saw him, a guy in his mid to late 20s just standing there on the sidewalk looking around. At first I thought he was just passing by, but he didn't move for a long time. It was weird, but I shrugged it off and went to bed. The next morning I forgot all about it. I went to work, did my usual stuff, and came home in the evening. I had dinner, watched some TV, and then went to bed. Everything was normal. But the next night, around the same time, I saw him again. He was standing in the same spot, just looking around. This time, it gave me the creeps. I closed the blinds and tried to ignore it, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Over the next few days, I saw him a few more times. Always at night, always just standing there. I didn't know what to do. I mean, he wasn't doing anything illegal, just standing there. But it still felt wrong. One night, I decided to be brave and go outside to see what he wanted. I stepped out onto my porch and called out to him, "Hey, can I help you with something?" He looked at me and smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It made my skin crawl. He walked over to my house and said, "Hi, I'm Mike. I just moved in a few blocks away. I've seen you around and thought I'd introduce myself." I forced a smile and said, "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Lisa." I didn't want to be rude, but I also didn't want to encourage him. "It's pretty late though, maybe you should head home." He nodded, still smiling that creepy smile. "Yeah, sure. Hey, would you like to grab a coffee sometime?" I hesitated. There was something off about him, but I didn't want to cause a scene. "Thanks, but I'm really busy these days. Maybe some other time." His smile faded a bit, and he said, "All right, see you around then." He turned and walked away, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't going to give up that easily. The next few days were quiet. I didn't see him around, and I started to relax a bit. Maybe he had gotten the hint and moved on. But then, one night, I heard a noise outside my window. I peeked through the blinds and saw him standing there again, looking at my house. My heart raced. This was getting out of hand. I called my friend Jenny and told her everything. She suggested I call the police, but I wasn't sure if they would do anything. "Just tell them what's been happening," she said. "Better safe than sorry." So I called the non-emergency police line and told them about the guy who kept showing up outside my house. They said they'd send someone to patrol the area, but that was about all they could do. I felt a little better, but not much. The next night, I didn't see him, but I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining him out there watching me. I finally fell asleep around 3 a.m., only to be woken up by a loud banging on my front door. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone and called 911. I stayed on the line with the operator, telling her what was happening. I could hear footsteps outside my window, then the sound of glass breaking. "He's trying to get in," I whispered urgently. "Stay calm," the operator said. "The police are on their way. Stay on the line with me." I hid in my closet, clutching the phone like a lifeline. I could hear him moving around in my living room, and I prayed that the police would get there in time. Finally, I heard sirens in the distance. The footsteps stopped, and I heard him run towards the back door. The police arrived moments later. I stayed hidden until they called out, telling me it was safe to come out. When I opened the closet door, I saw them standing in my living room, looking around. "He got away," one of the officers said. I also told them that the guy had told me that he lived a few blocks away, but I didn't know which direction. "We'll do a sweep of the area, but he might be gone." And unfortunately, he was just that. Gone without a trace. The officers asked around, but no one knew anyone who fit his description at all. I was shaking, but I thanked them for coming. They took my statement and promised to keep an eye on my house. They told me to get some rest, but I knew that was impossible. For the next few days, I didn't see him. The police increased their patrols, and I started to feel a little safer. But then, one evening, as I was coming home from work, I saw him again. He was standing across the street, just staring at my house. My heart sank. How long was this going to go on? I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called my friend Jenny and asked her to come over. We set up some motion sensor lights and a few security cameras around the house. If he came back, I'd have proof. Sure enough, that night, the cameras caught him prowling around my yard. I called the police again and showed them the footage. They took it seriously this time and promised to catch him. The next night, I stayed up watching the cameras. Around midnight, I saw him again creeping towards my house. I called the police telling them he was there. This time, they arrived quickly, catching him in the act. He saw them and made a run for it, but they were right behind him. I watched from my window as they chased him down the street. He was fast, but they were faster. They tackled him to the ground and hauled him away. I felt a huge sense of relief wash over me. The police told me he was being charged with stalking and breaking and entering. They said he had a history of similar behavior and that he'd likely spend some time in jail. I finally felt like I could breathe again. I'm still cautious, still looking over my shoulder, but I know he's not coming back. I'm grateful for the police and for my friend Jenny. If it weren't for them, who knows what could have happened. Everything started when I began dating my new girlfriend. I'll call her Emily for privacy reasons. We were so happy together, and for a while everything seemed perfect. But unfortunately for me, my past was about to come back and haunt me in ways I never imagined. Before Emily, I was in a relationship with a woman named Tanya. Things started off great with her too, but as time went on, she became more possessive and controlling. When I finally broke things off, she didn't take it well. At the time, I figured she'd move on eventually. I was wrong. Emily and I had been dating for a few months when I first noticed something strange. One evening, as we were leaving a restaurant, I saw Tanya's car parked a few spots down from mine. My heart skipped a beat, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then it happened again. And again. No matter where we went, I'd see her car somewhere nearby. I decided to contact her. I texted Tanya asking if she was following me. She replied with a simple, "No, why would I?" Her answer didn't sit right with me, but I had no proof, so I let it go. I didn't tell Emily about it because I didn't want to worry her. Things started getting worse. One night, Emily and I were watching a movie at my place when I noticed a shadow moving outside the window. I got up to check, but there was no one there. I felt a chill run down my spine. Could it have been Tanya? Was she watching us? The next day, I found a note on my car windshield. It was from Tanya, saying she missed me and wanted to talk. I was furious. I definitely hadn't told her where I lived, and we both moved from the apartment we once shared after we broke up. So how did she find out where I was staying? I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. I started seeing Tanya everywhere. She'd be outside my workplace, at the grocery store, even when Emily and I went out for a walk. She never approached us, just watched from a distance, a creepy smile on her face. It was driving me insane. I felt like I was losing my mind, always looking over my shoulder, expecting to see her there. One evening, Emily and I decided to go to a concert in the next town over. I figured it would be a good way to get away from everything for a while. The concert was great, and for a few hours I managed to forget about Tanya. But as we were leaving, I saw a car that looked awfully a lot like hers parked a few rows behind mine. My heart sank. She had followed us. I couldn't take it anymore. I told Emily everything on the drive home. She was understandably freaked out, but she tried to stay calm. We decided to go to the police the next day. They took my statement, but said there wasn't much they could do without concrete evidence of her stalking me. They suggested getting a restraining order, but I knew that would only make Tanya angrier. That night, I barely slept. Every little noise made me jump. I kept expecting to see Tanya's face at the window. The next morning, I woke up to find my car had been vandalized. The tires were slashed and "You'll Always Be Mine" was scratched into the paint. I knew it was Tanya. I called the police, but they said without witnesses there wasn't much they could do. Emily stayed over more often after that. We were both on edge, constantly checking the windows and locking the doors. One night, I woke up to the sound of someone banging on the front door. I grabbed a baseball bat and cautiously opened the door. There was no one there, but a note was taped to the door. "You can't hide from me." I was done. I called the police again and insisted they do something. They finally agreed to send a patrol car to keep an eye on the house. That seemed to deter Tanya for a while, but she soon found other ways to torment us. One afternoon, Emily and I were out for a walk in the park. It was a nice day and we were trying to enjoy ourselves, but for some odd reason, I kept feeling like we were being watched. As we rounded a corner, I saw Tanya sitting on a bench, staring at us. I snapped. I walked up to her and demanded she leave us alone. She just smiled and said, "You'll never get rid of me." We rushed back home and called the police again, telling them about the encounter. They promised to step up their patrols, but it didn't feel like enough. We decided to install security cameras around the house. It gave us a little peace of mind, but I knew it wouldn't stop her. A few nights later, the cameras caught Tanya trying to break into the house. I called the police, and they arrived just in time to catch her in the act. As they hauled her away, she was screaming my name, promising she'd be back. The look in her eyes was pure madness. Finally, I was rid of her and it was finally over. Emily and I tried to move on with our lives, but the fear lingered. Every time I saw a car that looked like Tanya's, my heart would race. Luckily, my lease was up not too long after that, and I moved away from that area. It still took months for us to start feeling normal again, but the memory of the craziness still gets to me. I never thought I'd be one of those people with a creepy story to tell, but here I am. This all started a few months ago when I moved into my new apartment. It was a cozy little place in a decent neighborhood, not too expensive, and close to my job. I felt pretty good about it at first. I mean, who doesn't love the feeling of a fresh start? The first few weeks were normal. I'd come home from work, cook dinner, maybe watch some TV, and then head to bed. I'd sometimes leave my curtains open to let the moonlight in. I've always liked falling asleep to the soft glow of the city at night. My apartment is on the 3rd floor, and across the street is another apartment building. Most nights, I'd glance out the window and see other people going about their lives just like me. Then one night, I noticed something odd. As I was brushing my teeth before bed, I glanced out the window and saw a light on in one of the apartments across the street. There was a man standing in the window looking right at me. At first, I thought he was just staring off into space, but it soon became clear that he was looking directly at my apartment. I tried to forget about it, maybe he was just zoning out or something. But the next night, there he was again, standing in the same spot, watching. It started to really creep me out. I closed my curtains and tried to forget about it, but the uneasy feeling stuck with me. Over the next few days, I found myself looking out the window more often, checking to see if he was there. And every time, without fail, he was. I told myself it was just a coincidence, but I couldn't help feeling paranoid. I mean, why would someone just stand there every night staring into my apartment? One evening, I decided to confront him. I opened my curtains wide and stood right in front of the window, staring back at him. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. He just stood there, his eyes locked on me. After a few minutes, I gave up and closed the curtains again. My heart was pounding, and I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. I tried to ignore it, but it was hard to sleep after that. I kept thinking about him, wondering who he was and why he was watching me. A few times I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That some guy was looking out his window? It sounded ridiculous even to me. One night I came home late from work. It had been a rough day and I was exhausted. I plopped down on the couch, too tired to even cook dinner. As I sat there staring at the blank TV screen, I felt that same creepy sensation of being watched. I turned my head slowly towards the window, and there he was, just like always. Something inside me snapped. I was tired of being scared, tired of feeling like I was losing my mind. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of him, thinking maybe I could show it to the landlord or the police. But as I looked at the photo, I realized something even more unsettling. In the picture, the window was empty. There was no one there. It creeped me out to no end. Was I imagining it? Was I really losing it? I decided I needed to get some fresh air, clear my head. I grabbed my coat and headed outside, planning to take a walk around the block. As I stepped out of my building, I glanced up at the apartment across the street. The light in his window was off. I walked around for a while, trying to shake off the anxiety. By the time I got back, I felt a little better. But as soon as I stepped into my apartment, the feeling of dread came rushing back. I didn't even have to look to know he was there, watching me. I forced myself to ignore it and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. I kept waking up, thinking I heard noises, seeing shadows moving outside my window. By morning, I was a wreck. I called in sick to work, too exhausted to even think straight. That day, I decided enough was enough. I called my friend Mia and told her everything. She came over that evening, armed with coffee and moral support. We sat in my living room, curtains closed, trying to figure out what to do. "Maybe it's just some creep," she said. "You should definitely call the police." "I know, but what if they don't believe me? I have no proof." Mia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Let's try to get some sleep. We can figure it out in the morning." We decided to camp out in the living room just in case. I felt a little better with her there, but I still couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of something tapping on the window. I froze, my heart pounding. Mia was still asleep beside me. I gathered the courage to peek through the curtains, and my blood ran cold. There he was, standing right outside my window on the fire escape. Not across the street, but right there, just a few feet away. His face was pressed against the glass, his eyes wide and unblinking. I screamed, waking Mia up. She saw him too, and we both bolted out of the apartment, running down the stairs and out into the street. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. The police took our statements and said they'd keep an eye on the area, but I knew they didn't really believe us. Mia insisted I stay with her for a while, and I gladly took her up on the offer. A few days later, I went back to my apartment to pack up some more clothes. As I was leaving, I glanced up at the apartment across the street. There in the window was the man, watching me. But this time, he was smiling. I haven't gone back to my apartment since. I stayed with Mia until I found a new place. But no matter where I go, I can't shake the feeling that he's still somewhere out there, watching me. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.